Welcome, Gunrunner.
This video is brought to you by A Compendium of Commodore 64 Games Volume 1 by Kieran Hawken and AG Books. This full-colour book features over 250 game reviews from the early days in 1982 right up to the homebrew games of today, as well as fun facts, interesting trivia, personal stories and developer interviews, making it the perfect companion to Jack Trammell's iconic 8-bit computer. It's available in both hardback and paperback and can be purchased worldwide from all leading bookstores, including Amazon, W.H. Smith's, Waterstones, Barnes & Noble and Wordery. So what are you waiting for? Get your copy today! Although the firm foundations of Commodore had already been created years before with the PET and VIC-20, it was the Commodore 64 that really took the world by storm and became the company's greatest success story. First released in 1982 and not discontinued until some 12 years later in 1994, the Commodore 64 soon became the world's best-selling home computer and wasn't displaced from its record-breaking spot until the recent debut of the Raspberry Pi. The computer was responsible for many innovative features upon release that very much set it apart from the competition, including multicolour sprites, super smooth hardware scrolling and the famous SID sound chip, the very first use of a synthesizer in a home micro. An aggressive price war saw the machine see off its rivals in both North America and Europe, where it was supported by every major games publisher and became home to many all-time classics. This enormous success means the machine is still extremely well remembered with a vibrant community, and this nostalgia also led to a new version of the computer being released in 2018 in the form of the C64 Mini, a plug-and-play console with 64 built-in games. With a system as popular as the Commodore 64, it's safe to say that you have a pretty substantial games library to choose from when making a video such as this. In fact, current figures put the number at over 10,000 titles. Pretty incredible really. So as you can imagine, it was pretty hard to put together a list of just 10 titles, and there was more than a few I had to leave out of this video, and I was swapping games around right up until the last minute. Perhaps I'll produce a more amazing exclusives video in the future to help remedy this. But I'm more than happy with my final selection that includes a number of bona fide classics as well as a few hidden gems too. Now let's take a look at these amazing Commodore 64 exclusives then, shall we?
In the competitive world of home computers, the Commodore 64 is absolutely unbeatable. With its enormous 64K memory, its printers, plotter, disk drive, monitor, and its vast range of software, we believe the only thing the Commodore 64 doesn't have is any serious competition. The Commodore 64. Never forget it's the world's biggest selling home computer.
When talking about the Commodore 64's best games and the system's best exclusives with its most hardcore fans, then one title is going to crop up more often than any other, and that title is Mayhem in Monsterland. Now I say hardcore fans because this game actually came very late in the computer's life, and was only released in Europe, so a large proportion of C64 owners from its 80s heyday won't be familiar with it. So that's why videos like this exist, to bring brilliant games like this to a new audience. Those unfamiliar might also be wondering if the game has a connection to the Wonder Boy series, and I can tell you that it doesn't, aside from being a horizontally scrolling platformer of course. This just happens to be another land full of monsters. In fact, the game is actually a spin-off from another series, the Thalamus-published Creatures franchise, which starred the same main character, Clyde. As you've probably gathered, this is your fairly typical Super Mario style platformer, where you jump on enemies' heads to kill them until you gain a special attack, avoid various hazards, and collect shiny stars, all against a strict time limit. Where the game does differ slightly is in the way it sets an achievement quota before each level. Both the graphics and sound are stunning here, near 16-bit quality in fact, and Mayhem in Monsterland plays every bit as well as it looks too. These days most people seem to associate the legendary Sensible software with the Amiga, which is somewhat of a shame because they developed some absolutely stonking C64 games first, like this one in fact. The game's title actually refers to the graphical effect, which is the key feature of the game, but more on that later. The actual plot describes a team of scientists who visit a seemingly friendly alien world, only to discover a sinister plan to invade Earth. This leads to 4 of the 5 scientists being captured to stop them returning to Earth to raise the alarm, and it's up to you as the last remaining free man to save your colleagues and get back home in order to stop the invasion. The game itself bears some early resemblances to Houston's wonderful Uridium, which was released earlier the same year, but instead of just scrolling horizontally, it allows you to fly in all 4 directions. The mix of shooting and rescuing also seems quite familiar in comparison, but where Parallax takes a big departure from Uridium is in the way you can dock your ship in certain locations and then leave the ship completely. This allows you to visit shops to make upgrades, collect the security cards needed to unlock each level, and also rescue the aforementioned scientists. Graphics and sound are both stunning here, especially that parallax scrolling, and it plays every bit as great as it looks too. There was a long, patient and very expectant wait for the legendary Ultimate Play the game to enter the Commodore 64 market. Whilst there were a few ports of existing ZX Spectrum hits like Sabre Wolf and Nightshade, it was the staff of Karnath that C64 owners were eagerly anticipating, as it was an original game very much designed for the hardware and announced as the first game in a planned trilogy, although 3 games actually ended up following this one. The game is presented with an oblique 3D viewpoint and is set inside a haunted castle where the player takes the role of the heroic Sir Arthur Pendragon as he attempts to collect 16 pieces of a key before it turns midnight. When all of these are gathered, they will form the shape of a magical pentacle. Of course, grabbing these isn't easy, as the keys are guarded by various magical creatures, which can be defeated by a combination of casting spells, timed attacks and careful dodging. Once a piece is obtained, the player must take it to a specific chamber within the castle to activate it. Once this is done, you can locate the mystical staff of Karnath and destroy it. You will constantly need to keep an eye on your energy and the remaining time, as if it either depletes completely, it's game over. Neither the graphics nor sound are anything special, but it's the deep gameplay that makes this one of the 64's best exclusives. Along with the seminal 3D adventure, The Sentinel, Hunter's Moon is often quoted as being one of the best examples of procedural content generation in early home computer games. This technique allows the game to create all of its levels based on clever algorithms, so that it plays differently almost every time. This gives Hunter's Moon a huge world to explore, 128 levels across 32 star systems to be exact. The plot in the game revolves around your ship being sucked into a black hole, which you must try to escape. This new universe is filled with respawning cells, making your journey much more difficult. If you are able to survive this ordeal and make it out intact, then you will need to destroy the enemy hives that are creating these nefarious life forms and collect the star cells, so you can warp to the next sector. The levels themselves scroll in every direction, with your ship being capable of full 360-degree movement. Armed with twin cannons and endless ammo, your ship can destroy everything in its path except the worker units, which can take you out with one hit. Once the level is completed, you are given the choice of where you want to travel next on the star map, which expands progressively. The random nature of the game gives Hunter's Moon a tremendous amount of replay value. Add in some amazing music from the one and only Matt Gray, and you know you have a real winner on your hands. When talking about cult classics from the Commodore 64, then this early game from Tasket definitely fits the bill. Your job is simple, to keep a water pipe flowing until a tank is completely filled, but in practice it's not so easy. This is because there are lots of little nasties that want to sabotage your pipeline for some unknown reason. They do this by either plugging the pipe to stop the flow, or just coming after you and taking you out instead. Thankfully you do have a young apprentice lending a hand, but being an inexperienced fellow, he will need to be guided, so if a pipe gets blocked you lead him to it and he performs the repair. You can also use him as a sacrificial lamb, putting him in the way of enemies so he gets killed instead of you. Don't worry about his untimely death too much though, because another eager apprentice will soon turn up to replace him. The enemies arrive via a ladder on the right hand side of the screen, so this gives you the ideal opportunity to shoot them down before they make it onto the playfield itself. But as they increase in number, this becomes a lot harder, and some enemies can only be shot from behind. The visuals are fairly simple in Super Pipeline, but the music is just fantastic, with great SID renditions of loads of famous tunes. The game does get challenging pretty quickly, but its addictive nature keeps you at it. Also check out the equally excellent sequel too. It's perhaps a little bit disingenuous putting this game on the list here, because as many C64 fans will know, Crazy Comets is actually a pretty blatant clone of the obscure 1983 Gottlieb arcade game Mad Planets. For those that have never played that vastly underrated coin-op classic, the game is a pretty original shoot 'em up, where you control a ship fending off a seemingly endless stream of small planets that seem to have gone berserk. They come towards you from the swirling starfield in the centre of the screen and come in two forms: Earth-like planets with land and sea that are relatively easy to destroy, and gaseous Jupiter-like planets that get crazier the more you shoot them. As well as bouncing around the screen trying to hit you, some of these planets will also arrive with moons and satellites orbiting them that they will fire right at you. Both types get stronger as they grow larger, so you need to take them out as quickly as possible. Much smaller comets also do their best to get in the way, and little rocket ships, replacing the spacemen from the coin-op, can be collected for bonus points. The ship is not fixed to a horizontal axis like similar shooters and can actually move anywhere around the screen, making it easier to dodge the planets. The graphics are certainly nice, but it's Rob Hubbard's stunning music that steals the show here. Crazy Comets is a true C64 essential. Created by Andrew Braybrook, Paradroid is undoubtedly one of the C64's most prestigious games, and was even voted as the system's best game ever in Retro Gamer magazine. In it, you take control of a lowly 001 service droid using the HID, Human Interface Device. Your task is to clear a fleet of spaceships of enemy droids by going from deck to deck. In each deck there are several rooms that contain computer terminals for information and mapping, energy restorers for repairing your droid, as well as lifts and doors. You can either destroy the droids with your weapon or take control of the enemy droid, which involves playing a clever minigame. In this you have to overpower the enemy droid using a series of circuits to increase the flow. If you fail as a 001 droid, it brings instant death. However, if you are a high level droid, when you lose, you just revert back. The different types of droid in the game each have their own special characteristics to take advantage of. Generally speaking, the higher the serial number, the more powerful and deadly they are. You only have control of the droid for a limited time, which is greatly reduced if you take damage, and when it elapses you go back to the 001 again. I wouldn't say that either the graphics or sound are particularly impressive in Paradroid, not that they are bad of course, but it's the compulsive gameplay that makes it a C64 essential. By 1992, the C64 was on its last legs, and consoles were taken over from computers as the gaming systems of choice. Not to be outdone by the likes of Alex Kidd, Mario and Sonic, Thalamus decided to come up with a kid-friendly mascot of their own, in Nobby the Aardvark. Programmed by Genesis Software, this game follows the story of the titular Nobby on a search for the magic land of Antopia, a place beyond his wildest dreams. The whole story is actually explained to you in an extremely impressive intro sequence, complete with animations and speech bubbles. All the music is provided by Ash Hogg, who went on to greater fame at Codemasters and more recently contributed to Microsoft's best-selling Forza Horizon series. Our hero is able to jump, shoot, swim, and even use a selection of different transport methods as part of his quest. These include a submarine, hot air balloon, and even a crazy runaway minecart. Eat your heart out, Indiana Jones. To break up the platforming action further, there is a maze-like top-down section very much in the style of the classic Atari arcade game Gauntlet. Nobby the Aardvark is a game that really shows what was possible in the later days of the C64, as programmers and artists tried to squeeze every ounce of unused power out of the 8-bit computer. It's also a pretty spiffing platforming romp too. It's a totally normal day on a totally normal alien research base. The sun glows green in a purple sky and the alien crew pursues its normal course of the day, when suddenly a blazing hostile fighter squadron plunges from the sky and takes over the base. With that, the automatic self-destruction mechanism is instantly activated and you must flee from the laboratory complex before the explosions kill everyone. In fact, you have precisely 15 minutes to fight your way to the rescue ship and make an escape. The aforementioned complex is made up of 29 horizontally scrolling levels that are connected by a series of teleports. Our alien hero is armed with a laser gun that he can use to dispatch the hordes, and this can be upgraded as the game goes on. There's also a very limited amount of missiles that can be used to destroy the larger foes that you encounter. Your character also has the ability to hover for a short time too, which proves to be especially useful later on in the game. Visually, Samsara is absolutely gorgeous with a lovely use of single colour gradients, and very much seems to have been inspired by the work of H.R. Geiger. The audio impresses too, with some great title music courtesy of the Maniacs of Noise, and the in-game sound effects are excellent. Overall, Samsara is a quality bit of run and gun action for the 64 that comes with all the style you'd expect from a Hewson title. I really wanted to try and get a Jeff Minter game into this list, given that I'm a huge fan of his work and have been lucky enough to chat with him in person on several occasions. It's well known that Jeff himself is a huge fan of the classic Williams arcade game Defender, and has produced numerous versions of the game over the years, both official conversions and his own unofficial reimaginings, of which this is one. So the core gameplay is a lot like Defender as you fly either left or right shooting down the aliens, protecting the inhabitants on the planet, in this case camels, and trying to make it to the next level alive. Then you'll see the individual quirks that were added at Minter's whim, which require some further analysis. First, there are the two planet surfaces, one at the bottom and another at the top, each of which has its own gravitational field. This means that your shots arc towards each one as you get closer to it. You'll also notice that the perspective of your sheep, which replaces the usual spaceship, changes from top down to side viewed. The second thing you'll notice is that the status bar doesn't feature a scanner as you'd expect, but instead a proximity meter to alert you of aliens nearby and your hunger level. You need to keep the sheep fed by landing on grassy areas or you'll die, and doing this also replenishes your shields too. The graphics are pretty simple, but the audio is absolutely fantastic and the gameplay is as fast and furious as you'd expect from a Minter game.
Was the night before Christmas, and there in the house, the kitten discovered the new Commodore's mouse. Now touch the mouse to do what you choose. The mouse makes the Commodore simpler to use. Educate, entertain, put thoughts together. The world's best-selling family computer just got better. So bring home the new Commodore 64 now. A Commodore Christmas to all, and to all
And that rounds up my look at 10 amazing exclusives for the Commodore 64. Can you think of any other exclusives for the world's best-selling 8-bit home computer range that should have made the list? Or do you think that some of these games were unworthy of inclusion? I always love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comments section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons to continue to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular, their much appreciated pledges: Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Aussie B, Noel Saw, DOS Gamerman and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to a host of extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.